I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025, a nostalgic and gory horror sequel. Almost 3 decades after the original I Know What You Did Last Summer thrilled audiences, the franchise returns with a legacy sequel that's as divisive as it is nostalgic. But here's where it gets controversial. While some critics hail it as a meta-humorous throwback, others find it a predictable and over-familiar entry in the slasher genre. This new installment, directed by Jennifer Kaytin Robinson, brings back Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr., along with a fresh batch of characters, all terrorized by the infamous fisherman. Let's dive into what the critics are saying about this latest addition to the franchise. Is this a worthy summer horror flick? Director Jennifer Kaytin Robinson delivers a lean, mean serial killer flick that fans of the genre will appreciate. Allison Foreman, IndieWire. As a sequel nearly 3 decades in the making, it surpasses all expectations and perfectly balances nostalgia with contemporary relevance. B.J. Colangelo, slash film. On the flip side, some critics find it a predictable and vibeless summer horror film that might make you prefer spending time outdoors. Tyler Tang, discussing film. How does it compare to the rest of the franchise? By a small margin, it's probably the best I Know What You Did Last Summer ever. Matt Singer, Screen Crush. This third sequel feels like the series' best because it offers comfort in the familiar setting while still surprising and horrifying fans. Nick Rurkraut, Awards Watch. For better and worse, it's just as mediocre a slasher as its predecessors. Dan Bayer, Next Best Picture. As a slasher film, it's fine. As an addition to the I Know What You Did Last Summer franchise, it's a standout. B.J. Colangelo, slash film. What's different this time is that the slasher elements are staged in a restrained way, making the movie more of a whodunit. Owen Gleiberman, Variety. If there's any consolation, it was at least a step above the much-maligned I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Casey Chung, Talking Films. What about other legacy sequels? The movie proudly wears its predecessors on its sleeve, easily cementing itself as the best modern horror reboot we've got. Lex Briscuso, Inverse. Fans of the recent Scream sequels will find similarities here in structure and in how Julie and Ray reprise their legacy roles. However, it never feels reductive. Nick Rurkraut, Awards Watch. It looks like a real movie unlike 2022 Scream, which felt more like a Netflix production. Benjamin Lee, Guardian. Robinson's take on the material is shamefully imitative of what Radio Silence has done with the 2020 Scream sequels and what David Gordon Green did with his Halloween trilogy. In short, this new I Know What You Did Last Summer is truly a copy of a copy. Rocco T. Thompson, Slant Magazine. There are no interesting new themes added to the equation, which is particularly disappointing, as this is often where legacy sequels like this thrive. Sam Boydman, Fundum Weede. It sticks out in my mind as one of the worst attempts at revitalizing a dead franchise in recent memory, because the brand at large exists in the canonical C-list. Tyler Tang, Discussing Film. Is this more of a meta-sequel? Jennifer Kaytin Robinson and Sam Lansky's script draws some strikingly smart meta-parallels between the events of 1997 and 2025. It's gleefully self-aware. B.J. Colangelo, slash film. It's a kitschy commentary about these ridiculous movies, which also understands that the ridiculousness makes them lovable and that our love, though sometimes ironic, is genuine. William Bibiani, The Rap. It's something closer in tone to a knowing horror comedy like Scream than the first I Know What You Did Last Summer, which was more of a straightforward hot teens in peril slasher. Matt Singer, Screen Crush. Late in this reboot, a character states, nostalgia is overrated, and it feels like an indictment of the film we've been watching. Rocco T. Thompson, Slant Magazine. It's not as intelligent as it thinks it is. I Know What You Did Last Summer is just trying to present the typical legacy sequel themes with enough stupidity and irony that it might fool someone into thinking there's something deeper going on. Tyler Tang, Discussing Film. Do we really need this? Robinson finds a way to make her attempt not exactly necessary, but unpretentiously pleasurable enough for that not to really matter. Benjamin Lee, Guardian. Frankly, the whole movie industry could use more original ideas and fewer looks back to the past. But this one is entertaining enough that I'll give a pass. Matt Singer, Screen Crush. We're here for last summer shenanigans. And we're here to relive that first, very entertaining movie and occasionally riff on the first, very ludicrous sequel. William Bibiani, The Rap. Robinson seems like she'll serve up a familiar dish, but she's not interested in it tasting the same. So when she pivots in the recipe, regardless of how your palate reacts, you can't deny the aftertaste will linger long with you. Peter Gray, The AU Review. The film feels like the predictable endpoint of a trend toward empty nostalgia that's run through all the big fish in horror cinema and is now coming to swallow up whatever might be left behind. Rocco T. Thompson, Slant Magazine. Is a movie scary? Harpoons have never been more terrifying than they are here. Allison Foreman, IndieWire. There are some solid jump scares, mostly in the film's early moments, that might get your heart pumping. Allison Rose, Flick Direct. Prepare to remain on the edge of your seat with plenty of jump scares and surprises that will either keep you screaming or smiling until the very end. Nick Rurkraut, Awards Watch. There's not a single scene in this entry that feels particularly scary. Robinson tips her hand far too much, telegraphing every jump scare so much that you may not even jump. Dan Bayer, Next Best Picture. This slasher, although gorier than the original, is not so interested in being scary. Tyler Tang, Discussing Film. It often falls into a rudimentarily constructed cycle of repetitious, lackluster frights. Courtney Howard, Fresh Fiction. How are the kills? The kills are vicious. Dan Bayer, Next Best Picture. Compared to the 1997 film of the same name, the new one steps up the deaths. There's an element to the deaths that adds an extra layer of horrified shock. Dark Sky Lady, Nerdist. Okay, yeah, the tension of the kills is broken up almost instantly by a strong sense of humor, but that's exactly how the OG film operates. At least this one is being honest about it. BJ Colangelo, Slash Film. Most unforgivable of all is that there are no great kill sequences. Rocco T. Thompson, Slant Magazine. There's a noticeable lack of satiating payoff with each. Courtney Howard, Fresh Fiction. What about the script? The new I Know What You Did Last Summer strains credulity until credulity breaks open and spills fake blood and candy everywhere. And that's for the best. William Bibiani, The Rap. There's an inconsistency with the film's narrative flow and logic building. Matt Donato, Daily Dead. There's a credulity-stretching finale that assuredly will piss off a generation of longtime fans. Courtney Howard, Fresh Fiction. Is it funny at all? It embraces the humor and brings it to the forefront, but isn't afraid to brutally torture some 20-somethings in the process. BJ Colangelo, Slash Film. The laughs are mostly reserved for asides and throwaway characters, and after the halfway point, the film flat out forgets to be funny for long stretches. Dan Bayer, Next Best Picture. How are the two returning stars? You'll be aching to see Hewitt and Prinze on screen together as sniping ex-love interests more than you knew. Allison Foreman, IndieWire. Prinze is better here than he was in the first film, and strikes a convincing figure as a man whose life was changed forever by this terrible event in his past. Matt Singer, Screen Crush. In his salt and pepper hair, Prinze evokes Frank Langella, and he's a much more interesting actor than he was before. Owen Gleiberman, Variety. It's nice to see Jennifer Love Hewitt returning to her iconic role, but the same cannot be said with Freddie Prinze Jr.'s older and supposedly world-weary Ray Bronson, whose acting is somehow questionably stiff. Casey Choan, Talking Films. Are there any standouts in the new cast? I do not know how Madelyn Cline is capable of delivering like 90% of what she says in this movie, but crown this croaker queen again. BJ Colangelo, Slash Film. Madelyn Cline makes for the newest Scream Queen with quite a flair for comedy. Nick Rurkraut. Reimagining a classic. Jennifer Kaytin Robinson's take on I Know What You Did Last Summer. Imagine a world where a director's vision clashes with the digital age. Jennifer Kaytin Robinson, the mastermind behind the reboot of I Know What You Did Last Summer, has a bold stance. She doesn't want to see a single cell phone on the big screen. I've done this in all of my movies for better or worse. I don't like social media and phones. The 37-year-old director boldly declares, I don't want to look at a phone screen. I don't want to see you text messaging. I just don't care. But here's where it gets controversial. Robinson's stance might seem outdated, but there's a method to her madness. In an era where everyone is glued to their screens, Robinson wants to pull audiences away from the digital noise and immerse them in the cinematic experience. Would all of these people be texting all the time? Sure, but I don't care, she says, standing firm on her decision. And this is the part most people miss. Robinson's approach isn't just about aesthetics. It's about creating a more engaging and immersive experience for the audience. Robinson's disdain for phones on screen is just the tip of the iceberg. She's on a mission to capture the essence of Gen Z and bring them into the theater. With I Know What You Did Last Summer, out this Friday, Robinson is tasked with updating a classic that defined a generation. The original 1997 film starred the likes of Freddie Prinze Jr., Sarah Michelle Gellar, Jennifer Love Hewitt, and Ryan Phillip, icons of 90s teen cinema. After a hit and run and a pact of secrecy, these stars were hunted by the fisherman, a hook-wielding maniac. Robinson's journey with this franchise began at the tender age of 9 when a babysitter took her to see the original film. I'm a true child of that time, she admits. I could lie and say that I came up on really important films, but I was forged in 90s cinema. From Dawson's Creek to Scream, Robinson's cinematic upbringing shaped her directorial style. Her 2022 film, Do Revenge, paid homage to classic 90s films like Cruel Intentions and Clueless. It was during the post-production of Do Revenge that Sony Pictures and Neil Moritz Original Films approached Robinson with the idea of rebooting I Know What You Did Last Summer. Robinson was confident that the core idea of the story could translate to a 2025 audience. The core idea is completely evergreen. At any point, in any time, someone making a grave mistake and then paying for it can work as a story, she explains. The real challenge was finding the balance between appealing to fans of the original and reinventing the story for a new generation. Too much of the former, and it alienates a new audience because they feel like they're on the outside of an inside joke, Robinson notes. Too much of the latter, and audiences will start wondering why they didn't just make an original horror film. The 2025 update sees a group of post-collegiate friends reuniting for an engagement party, only to end the night by causing a fatal accident. As they try to cover up their mistake, they are hunted by the fishermen, with the help of survivors Ray, Prinze, and Julie Hewitt as mentors. One of the most significant changes in the reboot is the age of the characters. While the original film featured teenagers, the reboot ages up the cast to their mid-20s. What's actually at stake is much more nebulous in high school than it is when you're in your mid-20s, says co-writer Sam Lansky. The cast of the 2025 reboot includes rising stars like Chase Sway Wonders and Madelyn Cline, who could very well become the new faces of Gen Z cinema. The film also incorporates modern generational markers, such as a true crime podcast host and plenty of therapy speak about trauma and self-care. But don't think Robinson and Lansky were combing through TikTok for inspiration. That is extremely just how Jen and I talk, says Lansky. I am, on my heart, a Gen Z, brain-rot girly, despite being an aging millennial. I Know What You Did Last Summer is just one of many films tapping into millennial nostalgia. The Lindsay Lohan-fronted Freaky Friday sequel and A Devil Wear Prada follow-up are also in the works. Earlier this summer, the live-action Lilo and Stitch became a breakout hit, catering to early aughts IP for Zoomers. The interest is there, but who will be the ones to make these movies? Robinson's career is a unique one. After creating the critically acclaimed MTV series Sweet/Vicious, she jumped into features with Someone Great and Do Revenge, both original films for Netflix. She isn't a stranger to IP, having co-written Thor, Love and Thunder. The typical path for millennial filmmakers has been through the indie space, but Robinson wants to see more filmmakers embracing commerciality. I want there to be more filmmakers, especially indie-leaning filmmakers, who want to and are excited about and understand the assignment of commerciality in making commercial films. They can still feel original, but are meant to be commercial, she says. Robinson fully grasped the anticipation for another I Know What You Did Last Summer when the trailer dropped online 2 months ago. But she knows some people will inevitably leave her movie with unmet expectations. I unfortunately know that not everyone is going to like this because we took swings, she admits. But I'm really proud of those swings, and what I hope is that even if you don't like it, you could be like, huh, cool swing. Robinson believes that any conversation surrounding movies is a positive when it comes to getting young audiences to the movie theater. She points to films like Sinners and The Materialist that stirred interest online and pushed people to go to the movie theater. Having discourse, good or bad, it doesn't really matter. Just talk about movies and make them feel like they have a place in culture. Everybody wants to be a part of culture. So, are you ready to dive in the world of I Know What You Did Last Summer and see how Robinson's vision unfolds? Let the conversation begin.